So in all of my videos, I get a crap ton of really, really great recommendations from you guys. And I look at all of them. I take a look and see basically if I'd like the book or really anything like that. And since you guys give me such great recommendations, I always go out and buy a metric crap load of books. And being on a teacher salary is already scary enough. I make like diddly shit. I make no money as an adult with like a bachelor's and a master's degree. And that's concerning. But besides that point, I buy a lot of books because of you guys. I see a bunch of books, I buy them because you guys recommend them. And I'm like, you know what? You guys have not strayed me wrong so far, so I'm just going to buy them. And what usually ends up happening is I end up broke with no money and a metric fuckload of books to read. So I thought, you know what? You guys are always showering me in incredible recommendations and thus ruining my financial status. So I thought, you know what? Tyler, it's your duty to get back. I want to get even. I want to strike back. You guys have been hurting my bank account. Well, now it's time for me to hurt yours. So I thought, you know what? I want to give you guys some recommendations of my own. So I found some books that I've finished recently and books that I quantify as fun. And fun, again, just to be known, I'm a teacher. I willingly chose to go and work in an environment where I get high-key roasted by teenagers every single minute of every single day. So what, God, I can't believe that's my job. My experience in fun is the same thing as like me giving an assignment to students that I view as fun, where they look at it and they're like, oh, Tyler, like this sucks. Like this isn't a fun assignment. I'm like, no, you don't get it. You're tracking like a character in their development over the course of the Scarlet Letter, and it's going to be in a PowerPoint presentation. Isn't that fun and creative? And they're like, no. Like, Tyler, you suck. And I'm like, ah, fine. So my version of fun might be different, but I hope I can actually give you guys some recommendations because you guys have been doing that for me that you might enjoy because I think that they're good books. And hopefully you have either read them or are going to read them and we can discuss about them in their entirety and really how fun and exciting they can be. So the first book I actually want to come here and recommend is Andre Aciman's Enigma Variations. And I think a lot of you guys probably know Andre Aciman from the movie and the book, or the book and the movie, Call Me By Your Name. And surprisingly, this book, I know I just picked it up, actually came out in 2017, which I was not expecting because I read Call Me By Your Name first and was like blown away by its focus on like sex and relationship and a coming of age story and identity and love lost. Not really a spoiler, but I was more struck by how beautiful the language was and how beautiful of a writer Andre Aciman is and how he can craft word choices that you would not expect into this like flowery and verbose language that I was not expecting. And I adored Call Me By Your Name. And then I was like, oh, they made a sequel, Find Me. And the book sucks. Like, Find Me is not a good book. I just want to throw that out there. I did not enjoy it. So after reading Find Me, I was like, I wonder if Andre Aciman has anything else. And I went to a Barnes & Noble and found Enigma Variations and was like, I don't know what this is. And it was published in 2017 and it stars, it follows a character named Paul as we explore 5 different variations on love, Enigma Variations, on love over the course of his life. Whether it's love as a young child or as a grown adult, whether it's with men or women, whether it's romantic or platonic, anything. It's any kind of love. And the reason I'm recommending this is Call Me By Your Name blew up. It blew up on BookTok, on booktube, on Bookstagram, I think that's a thing. It blew up everywhere, and justifiably because the movie came out, and the movie was really good. I mean, it starred someone who's canceled, Armie Hammer, who is not a good person, arguably a cannibal, and maybe a rapist, we don't really know. But then it stars, this hot hunk of meat right here, and then also this peach. So justifiably, it blew up, and a lot of attention was drawn to Call Me By Your Name, and I feel like from the discussions that I've seen, this book doesn't get talked about a lot. And that's kind of a shame because I think Call Me By Your Name is spectacular. I love this book even more. I found myself connecting with the character of Paul more than I ever expected. And like I said, it's 5 different like vignette stories of focusing on Paul as he grows up and encounters different kind of styles of love. And there are sections in there too, particularly, that almost brought me to tears. And reading and crying is difficult for me. It's hard for a book to bring that out, but this one had me moved to emotions that I did not know was possible, and more so than Call Me By Your Name ever could. And it's a shame that I wish we talked about this book more, because I think it's a better book than Call Me By Your Name, but again, that could vary. And what I gravitated towards this was how Paul interacts with different people and how Paul interacts with different versions of love. Because I think a strength of this book is examining Paul as he grows and examining him as he interacts with different people, because then we get a real good sense of his character and who he is and how his past and his current life and his current situations have impacted him. And that's something that I kind of wanted more in Call Me By Your Name, and I got that exponentially in Enigma Variations. I adored this book, legitimately. And it's something that I wish we kind of talked about more, because I think it's a book that is special. And I think it's a book in its examination on love that is special. And it's something that I kind of want all of us to read. And if I had any say in my school's curriculum, despite maybe sometimes a little more graphic content, I would put this front and center in terms of books that I'd want my students to read. I think it's really valuable. I do, and especially with our generation, this Gen Z and younger, growing up more accepting. I think this book is something that truly, I hope, doesn't get kind of lost in either the Call Me By Your Name adoration or just the annals of time. I hope this is something we're discussing in like 30 years as a contemporary classic and something that will be held in high esteem long after I'm dead. I love this book. I really do. The next two books that I have are actually two separate variations, and anyone who's been following me on here knows I'm a slut for women's literature. I love it. I adore it more than I think any type of book. I love the way that women find subtle ways to dig at the very systems that oppress them. I eat that shit up. That's my jam. And I actually have two books written by women that I like to recommend. Both are NYRB publications, and the first one is The Dud Avocado by Elaine Dunby. And I actually think one of you guys recommended this to me, which was a reason why I bought it. But it stars Sally J. Gorse it follows. We're not watching a movie. Sally J. Gorse, as she is a young as in like 18 to 20 range, young girl living in European countries. And we see her navigate a lot of different scenarios and attempt to find an identity. And that might sound pretty cliche, and I can completely understand that. But what really stands out about this book is its humor, its honesty, and its wit. I don't laugh often. That sounds really morbid, but I don't laugh often when reading. Like, it takes a lot for a joke to make me sit back and, like, laugh out loud. But I found myself, like, cracking up a lot with this book. Sally J. Gorse is a fascinatingly funny character, and her witty observations about everything just make me kind of smile. I love the honesty, especially when it came to her relationship with men and other women and gender and her expectations on the world and how she tried to find an identity. And I just kind of ate this shit up. I read this in like 2 days, just laughing a storm. I mean, as you can see, I bookmarked a crap ton of stuff that I can't wait to go back and check out. But like I said, this book is really funny, and it takes a lot of the, let's say, like, genre conventions that you might expect with a like a coming of age story with young women, and adding spice to it with a lot of genuine honesty and commentary. I don't know what else Elaine Dunby has read, but if she has written another book that's as magnificent as this, I'm wasting my small teacher salary on another more Elaine Dunby books, because Sally J. Gorse is one of the most memorable female characters I've ever read in a book. And I think just, man, this book slaps. I don't even know what to say. I came here, I had notes, and I'm just now thinking about parts in the book that just make me smile. But this book is really genuinely fun. It's got moments that I think are just downright excellent. And if you're into women's literature at all, this book was published in the 1950s, I think, 1958, if I can remember. So you're getting that turn of the tide in terms of the treatment of women. And I think that shows a lot in this. And the book has aged phenomenally. If this came out today, would have believed it. So The Dud Avocado slaps. 10 out of 10, would recommend. Great book, and if you haven't already, go check it out. If you have, let me know. The next book I want to recommend is not necessarily as fun per se, and this is where, unfortunately, the teacher element kind of comes in. That's Woman Running in the Mountains by Yuko Tsushima. Tsushima. And this book stars another young girl around the same age as Sally J. Gorse named Takiko. And we actually start the story with Takiko being very pregnant in a Japanese culture that does not necessarily condone being pregnant before marriage, because she got pregnant when an affair with a married man. And in Japanese culture, they very clearly lay out that that's just like, what the fuck? And we see Takiko, as she is slowly coming closer and closer to giving birth, navigate her awful dynamic with her family, especially her mom and her father. Her father's an abusive piece of shit, and this is where, like, the fun aspect kind of falls out, and is horrible to her. Physically, emotionally abusive. And we see Takiko attempt to navigate her identity. Big keyword right there. But also try to navigate her relationship with her child. Because I feel like, at least in America, there's a lot of stigmatization that mothers are supposed to undyingly love their child, and there should be no moments of hesitation, and they should, put their life on the line for their child no matter what. And I think that's something, just to clarify, that is 100% should be there. You should always love your kids. But this tackles a book where it's like, I don't know how to love my kid in this book. And she struggles with the identity of being a mother and the identity of this just entity in front of her, and how she can navigate that, and how she can be a mother, and how that child can accept love, and how she can accept love. And we see her attempt to circumvent the expectations of a single mother, and we see her interact with people who judge her for that, and we see her try new jobs and financially struggle and go to find daycare and fail and try again and find happiness. This is a kick-ass book about Japanese culture and identity. I think it was written in the 80s, so it's a lot of 80s Japanese culture, and I adored this book. I think my one caveat would be I wasn't the biggest fan of the ending, and that's just because it came too soon, which isn't that ultimately just like the greatest compliment of a book that you can give, that I'm like, oh, I wanted more time with the characters. In that it ended and I was like, fuck, like I need to see more. It didn't feel satisfying. But in the context of the story, which I won't spoil, it was satisfying. It made sense, but I closed the book after 3 days of reading, and to the point like, okay, don't tell my bosses this, guys. Like, let's keep this between us. But I didn't do my job when I was reading this book. I would actively give students some assignments to do independently, so I could have like 30 minutes to just sit in the corner and just read, because I was like, it was a page turner. I woke up at 5 a.m. I have to teach children all day. I get high-key roasted by children all day, and I woke up at 5 a.m. so I could get an hour and a half to read before I had to get ready for work. That's how in love with this book that I was. But also, I just want to say that I didn't pick out this book. I actually signed up, and this isn't any like sponsored thing, but I signed up for NYRB's Book Club of the Month. And yeah, the sign-up thing's expensive. It's not a cheap thing, but they send just a book from their thing or a new release from their publication every single month. And as you probably know from my videos, I'm a slut for NYRB. So this one was the second one that came in the mail. And I was like, this just like a Japanese author, a woman running in the outings. That's like my 2 key words right there. So I checked it out, read it in 3 days, didn't do my job, loved it. Wasn't a big fan of the ending because I wanted more. But yeah, if you haven't checked this one out, I'd highly recommend it. Apparently, this author right here is a renowned Japanese author, and I would love to read more of her books if I could find some. I haven't done that big of an extensive Google search on it because I've been kind of blown away from this book, and I wanted to let her words and her prose and her style of writing sit and like matriculate over time. So our last recommendation of the day comes with a caveat, and that's just because in order to recommend it, I have to talk about my dislike for another contemporary popular book that I think you guys might not agree with fully. This is Lucky Jim by Kingsley Amis, and in order to recommend this book, I have to tell you about my history with Donna Tartt's A Secret History, or The Secret History. I don't like that book. I'm just going to throw it out there. I did not find myself enjoying the satire, or finding myself enjoying the characters. And I know that's the point of the book. They're not good people. But even then, I kind of semi-understood what Donna Tartt was going for. And I read this book in when I just turned 18. So it could be like young and youth ignorance and not fully understanding it. But I remember reading it and being like, the satire feels really over the top. I didn't really like the effects on the characters, and I didn't really like what Donna Tartt was going for. And I've kind of held that for a long time. And the reason I read and got this book was because one of my students a little bit ago was reading The Secret History, and I was like, fuck, like that's such a good genre to tackle, like academic satire, like exploring the snobbiness of like collegiate environment. And I looked up some books, and I of course Googled my trusty NYRB and scrolled through and went on Reddit and tried to find a bunch of stuff, and it led me to Lucky Jim by Kingsley Amis. And this book was heavily recommended if I liked Donna Tartt's Secret History, and I was like, I don't like that book, but I checked it out. I bought it because I have no self-control, and I fucking loved this book. Sorry for the language, but this was everything I wanted The Secret History to be. This book, in its attempts at satire and its attempts at pointing out the absolute absurdity and snobbery of academia, in the academia culture, was just the greatest thing ever. This follows, I didn't say stars, Jim Dixon, who is this collegiate history professor who doesn't really want to be a professor. He kind of just not lucked into it, but like worked into it because it was the only thing that he perceived himself to be good at. And we kind of follow him in his last like 3 months of an academic year as he kind of is worried about his job because he doesn't think he's a good teacher, and he has this on and off relationship again with a woman, and he's trying to impress his really academically snobby boss, and his boss who he just likes to kind of make fun of because he feels very slow, but he often will like pick himself up in the worst moments. And we see this perceivably normal guy enter a world and navigate a world of perceived academic elites. And we see him engage in their culture and their life and their absurdities. And we see him just try to be a person. And I fucked with that more than anything because I feel that way myself. I mean, I'm not a college professor by any means. I'm a high school teacher. But when I was starting teaching, I was so worried that I didn't have the knowledge, the ability to teach students because like, oh, what do I know? I'm just some dude. Like I am. I was just born in 1998 and now here I am teaching children about English. Like that's just wild thought to me. I have no idea how to process that. Like they gave me my college diploma and then my grad school diploma, like a bachelor's in English and a master's in education were like, you're now certified to teach. Like I got my Massachusetts teaching license, it transferred over to California, and I got employed and I started my first day and I was like, I don't know what the fuck I'm doing. Like I'm so out of my league. But I was surrounded with people who seemed so confident, and I just felt like such an imposter. And that's why I connected with Jim, because he's someone who doesn't necessarily know his path in life, doesn't necessarily think he's a good teacher, who just sees this environment and doesn't know how to connect with it. And I really, really loved Kingsley Amis's attempts at subtle satire, which is what I really love. And at the time when I read Donna Tartt's A Secret History, I felt that was over-the-top satire. And this was subtle satire, to me at least. And that's why I really, really connected with this story, with the main character, with the entire book. And that's why out of all of these, this is the one that is my favorite. It's not even close. Like, I love Enigma Variations. I love The Dud Avocado. I love Women Running in the Mountains. I am transfixed over Lucky Jim and Kingsley Amis, and I know he's a prevalent author, and I just want to read more from him. I do. Like, most likely by this point you're watching this video, I would have already bought more books from him. I love him. I love this book. I love it so much. Please check this one out. So I know that's kind of like a really scattered video where I just kind of rambled about teaching and some books that I love, but these are all books that I've read recently and that I'd highly recommend. So if you want to buy them, joke's on you, because I think you can find all these books for pretty cheap on like thrift books. But these are all NYRB and these are harder to find. So go and break your bank. Be poor like me. We got to rebel against I don't know what we're rebelling against, but we just got to buy more books, engage in capitalism, engage in consumerism. We just got to take it to the streets and buy all the books. So let's just perpetuate that consistently until we're all dead and we have mounds of books we haven't read. So stupid. Okay, that actually is going to bring us to the end of this video. I hope you guys enjoyed. I hope you guys can either recommend something to me because I have a spending problem and I want to recommend more books, but I also hope if you've read these books, let me know. And if you haven't and are going to check them out, let me know too. So again, that will actively bring us to the end. If you haven't already, go check out Matt's bookshelf. He's one of my best friends, making videos on booktube as well. And also Drunzo, also known as Mark, who is making videos as well. They make great stuff. You know, I highly recommend both of them. They're my two favorite just people in the world outside of, oh God, what's a good joke? Oh, there's Plato. He could be one. What else is over there? Oh, Jane Austen. How about that? Outside of Jane Austen. It goes like Jane Austen, Mark, Jane Austen, Mark, Matt. Then let's throw Santa Claus right there. Jane Austen, Mark, Matt, Santa Claus. Jane Austen, Mark and Matt, Santa Claus. Terrible joke. That was an awful joke. I'm going to cut that. I probably won't. Okay. Also, I have an Instagram. I'll link it in the description below. I'm just like posting random shit about books. And I also, if you want to send me an email or contact me for any reason, email in the description. It's also on the About section of YouTube. But then again, thank you guys for watching. I hope you enjoyed, and I'll see you again soon.